That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, they'll be all of those. They knew what's been. Yeah. The other one that actually.
And I'm gonna intro you.
Okay.
And as far as I understand, all I'm gonna do is.
Okay.
We're in a learning
not
curve, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't believe we're muted. Yeah, everything should be on.
Yeah, exactly. How are you, Jerry?
I'm talking to you.
Oh, good.
Yeah. What are you making?
No, I made a reel today. A video.
Oh, you mean one of those things on Facebook?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
it started, so
I'll switch.
switch with me for a second. All right, hi, welcome to the Morgan Conservatory's Talking Paper Lunchtime Chat. I'm Nicole Donnelly, I'm the Executive Director. Hello, nice to see you here. Thank you for joining us today with artist Joseph Lappie. He has been our artist in residence for about 2 weeks, and in those 2 weeks, really putting out a lot of work. And I have to say that the Artist in Residence program is supported by the Wingate Foundation, which generously supports 12 artists throughout the year. Joseph Lappie is the chair and full professor of the Art and Design Department at St. Ambrose University in Davenport, Iowa, and teaches bookbinding, papermaking, printmaking, and drawing. He developed and continues to grow a print and book concentration. Joseph works heavily in the Quad Cities to provide free or near free book, paper, and print demonstrations for area K through 12 schools, nonprofit organizations, and on the sidewalks of the community. Receiving his M.F.A. in Interdisciplinary Book and Paper Arts at Columbia College, Chicago, Joseph shows his installation print work and artist books throughout the country. He has shown in Atlanta, Chicago, Iowa City, London, New York, Portland, and Seoul. His book work is collected in multiple collections, including Yale Arts Library, School of the Art Institute of Chicago, Ringling College of Art and Design, and the Jaffe Book Arts Collection. Please help me in welcoming Joseph Lappie.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out. I'm going to start my timer so that we have a nice tight 20. So give me 1 second. And there we go. So I'll try and keep this brief. First, thank you to Morgan. Thank you to Nicole and Tom very much for allowing me the opportunity to be out here. Thank you to Paula for housing me for the past week and a half and for the next several days. And thank you to Amy for feeding me and taking me around the city when otherwise I would have either just been here or at Paula's house. So I really, really appreciate all of that. Not because I didn't want to, just because I get set into a pattern. So I'm going to give you just the briefest history of me. I have my undergraduate degree from Ball State University in painting and graphic design with a concentration in printmaking. After Ball State, I moved out with my partner to Portland, Oregon. I figured if I went out to a place where I knew nobody, had no friends, no peers or professors telling me to make art, and I would continue to make art, then that maybe was the place and thing for me to do. While I was out there, I worked at a place called Powell's Bookstore, which is a large independent bookstore. And I spent my time there working in the rare book room, in the small press collection, and sorting things. And so it was kind of the mix between the rare book room and small press, where I was finding really nicely made books of antiquity, and then in the small press where I was finding chapbooks of poetry that were letterpress or screen printed, maybe poorly done, but still like with a lot of heart to it. So I got really excited about that. And I started making books there. At the time I was still painting, and I'm not a great painter. So like it slowly sloughed off into print and drawing and more graphic, illustrative things. And I just got really excited about the idea of the book, not as a container for art, but as art itself. So thinking about pagination, thinking about the cadence of language and image versus text, all of that sort of junk. I made a couple of really, really crappy books there, but they were good enough that I really wanted to push it farther and further. So I ended up in 2005 at Columbia College in Chicago, learning how to, that was the first time making paper, learning how to letterpress really well, bind really well, and really trying to combine this idea of object with my content. And it's also, you'll see this a little bit, and I'm skipping the first half, which I would call proto installations. And I was really concerned. I normally go kind of sequential, but I'm junking that because of I want to get the important stuff out of the way first, and if we have time, we'll get to the other stuff. So I was in Chicago till 2009 when I was invited out to Ambrose to design their, at the time, book arts degree. And I was just going to be there for 1 year. Basically, they bought a bunch of stuff, none of it worked, and they asked me to come out and fix it for a year and teach some courses. My plan at the time was to go back out to the West, and I've been there for the past 15 years. And I'm currently the chair of the department. And we still have a really vibrant book and print and paper concentration. But, you know, times have changed a little bit with higher education. And so the book arts major is no longer, but there's still that concentration. Anyway, so I'm skipping a bunch of the proto installations, but I wanted to show you the path to where we get to Only We, which is what you're seeing over here, and mainly what I've been working on since I've been here. And I'll get to the idea of that when I get to it. We're already at 4 minutes, so I'm moving. So this was my grad thesis at Columbia, and it's called There's Always More Than One When There's Always Only One. And the reason I want to show this is because I actually feel like all of my stuff is connected to each other. So these are life size, and by life size, the human figures are human size. So the tallest would be the guy in the middle with the cloud behind his head, which is about 6'6". Those are all cut out on the exterior with a scroll saw, and then carved with wood gouges on the interior, placed up kind of in a theatrical bit. You can't really tell, but they are at different depths from the wall. And the idea was kind of as a stage. And then the background is a mixture of shadow selves, kind of those Jungian shadow selves of who you are versus who you present to be. And you also can't see it, but if you look at the little kid on the far left pointing, you can kind of see a different type of shadow. And those are short stories, flash fiction, that were related to events that happened to me. I would call them fictional factuals, right? Like they were truths, but like I spruce them up a little bit to make them more exciting, right? It's how we talk about, you know, you get a really good story and you tell it over and over again, and then you're like, I need to tweak this to make it better. They laugh more at that. So that's more like what this is. So this was my first real idea of using the matrix as a piece of art as well as the substrate. So these are just a couple of close-ups of those. And then I also still print them. So the idea was that I would have a one-of-a-kind piece and I would have a multiple, because I do deeply believe in the dissemination of work. But anybody, I mean, we're all printers or paper makers or multiple makers in some fashion. No, sometimes people don't want to buy things that other people have. So it's my first idea of trying to play a market. And, you know, it is where it is. Most of them are still in storage. That led to the procession. So the procession, the big difference here was, for the previous one, I used a skill saw. This time I used a scroll saw. So these figures are much smaller. They're a little hard to see, but these are all still wood. I'd exclusively used live models for all of the drawings, although you can see that some of them are kind of like turned into animals or monsters, but I used real figures, and I created this, it's about 10 feet at its height and about 40 feet long pathway, which is dealing with death and acceptance and dealing with, this was kind of the entryway of like herbs for me, herbs and flowers and their meaning, and these ghosts coming out, and this idea that memory is heaven or hell more than like actual heaven or hell. Like the idea of being remembered when you die is really important, because like if your family remembers you positively, and your children or your friends or whatever path that might be, you have that direct relationship that you're recalled, you're loved. And then at some point in time, you get to a generation, to a generation, to a generation, you either become a myth or a legend or nothing. You know, my main thing is like, you think of George Washington, who didn't cut down a cherry tree, who owned slaves, who had these many things, and he is not the person that he was. He has become a person based off of story. So that is the heaven and hell for me in this world. So that's a lot of this, and it's also my first real attempt to make the matrix really flow with each other. So that's what those inner parts are. Some of them kind of look like flames, some of them look like flowers, some of them are just kind of like roots and lines that are moving to the next piece, as opposed to just making them pieces individually. These are a couple of close-ups. So you can see the matrix is on the left, the print is on the right. This one's hard to see, you'll see it better. All the prints are two colors, so there's a white and a black. This is just a crappy print or image of that print. You can see a little bit better on this one. I also started to use color in the matrix. So again, that's all wood. This was just Photoshop magic, in case you were wondering. Like, I just photographed them separately and then chunked those into the piece. That led me to what I would consider, I mean, maybe when this is done, I'll feel differently. This was like the thing that I feel the most proud of, but also just didn't gain any traction whatsoever. So this is a 16-foot tall by about 60-foot long installation. Again, all wood. This time I used CNC and laser cutters to do the exterior and the base lines of the interiors. And then I would use gouges to carve out the more intricate details. So for context, that middle figure there is about 4 feet tall. And this was really dealing with, again, life and rebirth. Up at the top is a cancer cell that slowly takes over. You can't really see it, but it starts off as healthy cells, and it kind of takes a moon cycle. So it goes from like a full moon to a new moon, but also it goes from really healthy cells to less healthy cells. Above the heads, I'll just zoom in a bit, you can see some animals. So I was dealing with trickster gods. I was really interested in the idea of the trickster god, both helping and hurting humanity and helping and hurting the gods. So we have Raven, we have Coyote, we have Anansi, we have Brer Rabbit, and Prometheus. And all of those people, or all of those demigods or mythical trickster gods, were the ones that like gave humans fire and gave them information, and then also killed them all. And like it was just kind of this like I don't know, chaotic neutral character where they didn't want anything going well. And so you have this is kind of the idea of a new pantheon. Yeah. Okay. So it's also dealing with the fates and the triune. So we've got mother, we've got crone, we've got virgin. All of these are herbs or flowers coming out of different chakra points, and dealing with like that specific character. So those are just closer up versions. that was my older kid's butt. He was really in love with immortal jellyfish. And I don't know if you know about immortal jellyfish, but they're one of the animals that can actually, assuming they're not eaten, as they age, when they become elderly, they revert back to a pupae, and then they can grow again until they're old, and then they revert back and they can grow. So unless they get eaten, they don't die. These are just a couple of other close-ups of some of the matrices. That's Captain Tommy retired, kitty cat. And the idea is that those spores, Captain Tommy retired, died, and obviously decomposed, and then those spores go and create new life. So the idea is that this is ultimately a rebirth sort of thing. So now we're on to Only We, which is what I'm mainly dealing with here. These are prints that I had done previously. I had planned on doing some here, but as I was printing, I drastically changed. I was trying to print off of these acrylic pieces. And it just like, because it's acrylic, and if anybody's printed before, you know, it kind of like smudges. It's really hard to get it like a crisp image. So I'm going to go back and make them out of wood so I get it exactly how I want. But this is what some of the prints will look like that I was planning to do here. And I just redirected. Only We is a project that I came up with about 1.5 years ago. And I'm drawing and then turning into a figure every single death that was related to COVID or COVID related diseases from my county, Scott County, in the eastern side of Iowa. And so I intentionally made them these shadow figures, to be a little more ghostly, a little more absent, holes out of things, but also initially I was going to try and contact all the families, and it became too political. It became too much about class. You know, I'm a middle-aged, middle-class white guy, and a lot of people didn't want to really talk to me or share photos. And so what I've been trying to do is use demographics in terms of age, gender, and race to like break down what my figures look like. And I like this better because it's really not about the individual. It's about all of us. The whole point is it's about all of us. I'm trying to keep it as, I mean, it's always political a little bit, but I'm trying to keep it nonpartisan. And what I mean by that is this is just an opportunity to make it reflective and healing. I don't know a single person on either side of anywhere that hasn't lost people from this thing. I can look at my kids who were 4 and 6 at the time and see a drastic shift in how they treat the world. And I think that it's important. I mean, looking at things like the Vietnam War Memorial and other of the more contemporary memorials, I think it's important to have that moment. And this is just a tiny thing, but the idea is that it will go into a public space near where the majority of people died. Downtown, but like on the west side of downtown. In Davenport, the west side of downtown is just where a lot of people died for multitudes of reasons, but mainly race and class. So what I've been doing here, beyond just making a lot of paper for substrates for the prints, is I've started working on these paper pieces, which will be on the wall and be more for a gallery setting as opposed to a outside installation. And I just pulled a few. I'm not going to pass them around, but they're going to kind of look like this. And there's 5 different sizes. The largest is 40 inches. This is like 30. And it will go down to 12. And they'll all, you can't see this right now, but it goes from black to natural abaca. So we'll go black, charcoal gray, gray, light gray, and natural abaca. And they'll hang off of each other, you know, maybe a ½ an inch or so. And then I'm going to put a slight wind on them so that they'll kind of crisp. And this is overbeaten, right? So it's a little crispier than other papers. And then I'm also, this is, I just mocked this up this morning. Obviously, this is just a Photoshop thing, but this is kind of what it will look like. And then imagine it being about, you know, 3 inches off the wall. And I'm also making a book. And so this book is all handmade cotton abaca, and this is the first layer. There are 16 pages. Well, there's 16 sheets of 32 pages in total. And it will, I've got a few more layers. I'm going to build those up in different directions. So these are printed from there, so they are a little smudgier, but I'm actually liking it in the book because they're getting cut up and they're going to be layered. So there'll be a kind of orangish red and then an orange over top of this, and then text. This is a little bit of what the murmuration is going to look like for the permanent piece. And this is about half of it. So imagine this right now. Each one of these panels is a 40-inch by 48-inch panel. And it's going to go up one more round and two more over. And so the idea, for those of you who don't know what a murmuration is, that's when birds take a pattern where they just fly. There's thousands and thousands of them, and they move around so that predators have a harder time getting to them. And you can see it clearer here, but there's little circles taken out of each one of them. And that's the absence of that person for their family and friends. And I really only have enough time to read this. I've got a bunch more, so I can flip through it after the live if you want to, just to see a few other things that I do. But I want to read you this because this is going to be the text of the book. And this is also going to be cut out in the permanent outdoor space, which is a poem by Aubrey Jane Ryan, who I hired to write specifically for this project. And it's called Murmuration. So it says, even the tree crowns speak together, even the bees. Why question our lost operas? We sing. We're with mycelium, learning, to tendril, to unmake ourselves, to move on being another plot. A point between A and B, a new letter whose sound is rain, love, here's a navigation. Here's a map, but we can't speak the map to you. You won't believe this mechanism, this murmuration, but watch, from your hills and your windows and your walls. We're up in the sky. You can see we're in the sweetest hive. So that's part of the reflection that I'm hoping. Like, this will be presented as a murmuration, a flow. This will be presented textually in the book. I've got 10 seconds left. The book will be on a pedestal, white pedestal, black book, bound with handmade paper and prints. There'll be the number of every single person. So 462 little tiny black figures will be hanging over top with a light coming down smack in the middle to illuminate that book. And done. I think we're going to wait just a few moments for any questions until Instagram.